Okay, chapter 8, chapter 10, I already messed up. Chapter 10, section 8, equations of circles. How are we going to write an equation of a circle? Well, we'll see if I can get my computer to advance. There we go. So if we are given a circle on a coordinate plane, okay, just meaning on a grid, an XY axis, then the center is at a point that we call H and K. And I know these are just random letters, but they stand for the X and Y value of the center point of the circle. So they are in alphabetical order, just like X and Y are. And the radius is called R. So if we know those letters and what they represent, okay, here's what it would look like. Again, H is the X coordinate of the center point. Here's our center, 1, 2, 3. And K is the Y component. So we're going up 2, so it's 2. The radius is how far it is from the center to the edge of the circle. So 1 box, 2 box, 3 box, 4 box, 5 boxes. So our radius is 5. Our equation is going to look something like this. It actually originates from the distance formula. If you squared everything, remember if we square a square root, that undoes that square root, so it pretty much just takes away the square root and the squared cancels. And so we get our equation of a circle, which looks like this. Okay, remember, this is the X component of our circle center. This is the Y component of our circle's center, and this is the radius. So this Y and this X stays in the equation. We never replace it. Think of your equation of a line. We never replace the X and Y. Y equals mx plus b, right? The Y and the X stay there. The Y and the X here are going to stay in the equation as well. So if you're asked to find the standard equation of a circle, you could be given something like this. Here's the center, and here's the radius. Well, given our equation, okay, here's our basic equation, so you should have this written down. The X component of our center is our H value, so the X part goes here for H. The Y component goes where the K is. Now, that means we'd end up with two negatives, a negative, negative, and then our radius goes where R is. So we're going to plug those in. And remember, this became positive because we had a minus a negative. And then 8 squared is 64. You need to go on and square it. Don't tell me 8 squared over here. I want this whole number. And this is your equation. And just leave it like that. Easy as pie. Okay, so write an equation for the circle with the center at 3, -3, and the diameter is 12. Okay, diameter is 12. We want radius, right? So we have to cut that in half and get 6. Here's our basic equation of the circle. We're going to plug our X component in for the H and our Y component in for the K and our radius in place of R. So this 3 came down here. This -3 came down here. And this 6 came down here. Okay, give you a minute to kind of digest what we did here. X goes with H, Y goes with K. They're both in alphabetical order, X, Y, H, K. Okay, there's nothing we can do here. But if I have a negative negative, that can become positive, right? And I know I can square the 6. So we need to do those two things. And that is our final answer. That's what you would box in and give me as your answer. Okay, that's what the equation of a circle looks like. So see if you can do this one. Pause the video, use your notebook, the equation of the circle that you should have written down in your notebook, and see if you can work this equation. Once you think you have it, unpause it and you can watch me work it out. Okay, so here we go. We have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. You should always start off with your equation. That tells you what things you need to know to solve this problem. So here's h and here's k. I'm just going to plug them in. Whoops. Y minus -5 and r. Well, this says d, so don't put d in where it says r. D stands for diameter. How do I find radius from diameter? I got to cut it in half. So my radius is 9 squared. Now I go back through here and see if I can simplify it in any way. Well, x minus 0 is just x. But don't forget this squared part. If I have two negatives, that becomes a positive. Don't forget the squared. If you don't put that squared there, it's wrong. Because 3 is not the same as 3 squared. 3 squared is 9. 3 does not equal 9. So you got to have these squares here. What is 9 squared? 9 times 9. 81. So now we go and we look, do we see anything that looks familiar or looks similar to that? Yep. Choice D does. And there you go. That is the correct answer. So hopefully you got it right. Okay, find the equation of a circle. For a circle with center 5, -1, so we know our h and our k, and a point on the circle at 1, 2. Well, it doesn't give us our radius, but think about what a radius is. I'll do it over here. The radius is the distance from the center to a point on the circle. We have the point on the circle, and we have our center. We just need to know this distance. Do we have a way to find distance between 2 points? Yes, we do. And it's the distance formula. x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, so we got to do that. Here's my x1 minus x2, 5 minus 1. y1. Okay, so these numbers just came from up here. And y2. I subtracted it. Okay, so when we do that out, what is 5 minus 1? And what is -1 minus 2? Okay, so you should be able to work this out from this point on. Again, pause the video, work it out yourself, and see if you get it right. That's going to tell you where your struggles are. That's what tells you what questions to ask me in class. Be prepared. Okay, now what is 4 squared and -3 squared? 16 and 9. What's 16 plus 9? 25. What's the square root of 25? 5. So now I have my center from up here, and I have my radius because the square root of 25, whoops, didn't want to do that yet. Square root of 25 is 5. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay. So here's h, here's k, here's my radius. I simply plug them in, see if there's any way to simplify. Okay, yes, -1. If I subtract a -1, it becomes positive, so make sure you do that. And 5 squared is 25. So always make sure you square that radius. Don't leave it as 5 squared. Go on and square it out. Give me the number. So there's your equation. Now we're going to go backwards. I'm giving you the equation. I want you to graph it. Okay. Where are you going to start? You need to know the center and you need to know the radius. Can you find those two things from the equation? Why, yes, you can. Okay, so we're going to find the center by using our h and k values. Remember that in our original equation, it was x minus h and y minus k. So what did I subtract here to get a positive 2? I subtracted a negative 2. What did I subtract here to get a 3? I subtracted the 3. So you're basically just taking these numbers and switching the signs. Okay? And then my radius, this is radius squared, remember? So what is my r going to be? 9 is r squared. I want just r. So I got to take the square root. What's the square root of r? What's the square root of 9? It's 3. So now I have my center. Now I have my radius. I can graph it. If you know how to plot a point and count to 3, you can graph it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Here's our graph. What was our point? It was -2, 3. So I start at the center. I go left 2, up 3. There's my center. My radius was 3, so I'm going to go 3 in all 4 directions. Top, up, down, left, right. Count to 3. Okay, so here's my radius, 1, 2, 3. Now I got to go 1, 2, 3 in this direction, 1, 2, 3 left, 1, 2, 3 up, and I'm going to plot points in all of those places. And then using a compass, I'm going to connect the dots. You don't have to use a compass. If you wanted it to look perfect, you would want to. But just connect the dots with as smooth a circle as you can, making sure you're hitting those points. Okay, so now you try it. Here's the equation. Pause the video. See if you can figure out where your center is and how long your radius is going to be, and sketch a graph. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just draw your own x and y axis on your paper and estimate. Okay, so here we go. I know that my h is going to be 2. I'm just going to take the opposite of this. If it's -2, I'm going to take +2. My y is going to be the opposite of that, so it's going to be -3. So that is my center. And then my radius, I take the square root of 4 and get 2. So I know my center is at 2, -3, and my radius is 2. All I did was take the square root here. Remember, you got to take the square root, and you want the positive value. So now on your graph paper, you're going to go to the right 2, and you're going to go down 3, and you're going to put a dot, and then you're going to count 2 in all 4 directions and connect the dots. Okay, so we went 2, -3, and then in all 4 directions, we counted 2 spaces and connected the dots. So you should have had a circle looking something like this. Okay, so multiple choice. Again, pause the video, do it yourself, see which answer choice you get. Okay, so let's see how you did. Look at this, x. There's no minus or plus anything here. Well, if I'm not adding and subtracting anything, guess what my number is? It's 0. That is my h. What am I subtracting over here? I'm subtracting a 5. And then if I take the square root of my radius, or my r squared, to find my radius, I get r equals 5. So now I got to find the picture here that shows the center of my circle at 0, 5. Well, this is not the center of my circle. This is. So B is a possibility. This says -5. Well, I can't get a negative if I take the square root. Actually, here. It's not -5. This is -5. Okay. But I'm subtracting the +5, so I don't want that one. And here I got them flip-flopped. So they are putting answers here for all the mistakes you're going to make. You're going to put this -5 there because you just see that negative sign. Some of you are going to flip-flop your X and your Y. You're going to graph it wrong. But the only one, this is wrong, that has the center at 0, 5 is B. Let's check and make sure that the radius is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So I'm going to choose B. Okay, pause the video. Try to do this one on your own. All right, let's see how you did. So what did you get for your H component here? What are we subtracting to get a +4? A -4. It's always going to be the opposite. So what are we going to put here? Opposite of +3 is -3. That is my center. To find my radius, I need to take the square root of 9, which is 3. Okay, so I have 2 that have my center at -4, -3. So we can cross these two out. Now I got to find which one has my radius of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, what is this one's radius? 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, square root of 9 is not 4. So A is my correct answer. Hope you did well. Okay, so far you should have learned how to take the center and radius of a circle and turn it into an equation looking something like this. And then going backwards, taking the equation and creating a circle from that on a graph. Come in with any questions you may have. We're going to be doing it both ways on your assignment. See you then.